Hello and welcome to the channel Windows versus Linux. In this video I'm going to describe pretty much the first prerequisite or necessary step that I would recommend for anyone looking to get into Linux. And like I said in the last video, Linux itself is an alternative to anyone looking to get away from Windows 10, because Windows 7 is losing support this coming year. So I would definitely not recommend anyone to just download and install Linux and just try to jump into it, because what often happens is you'll find that some of the programs, if not all of the programs that you normally use on a daily basis, will not work natively in Linux. There are ways to get Windows programs to work on Linux, but they don't work natively. At least most of them don't. So things like your Microsoft Office, your QuickBooks, things like that, they will just not work on Linux. So the first thing that I would recommend is for people to adopt the open source mentality of Linux. And if you don't know, Linux is an open source project, which means it's basically community run and maintained. Anything that's open source means that the code is available for anyone to look at, which makes it very secure. Anyone can see the code, they can see the bugs, the vulnerabilities, and fix them. It also makes things usually free. Anyone that engages in an open source project usually makes their things available for just donations, if anything. But a lot of the software that you'll be using for Linux is completely free to use, unless, like I said, you want to support the developers. So the first thing I would recommend is to, rather than completely switch gears into Linux, keep whatever operating system you have for Linux, or for Windows, and try to find alternatives to the software that you already use. And you'd be surprised how many there are. For instance, Microsoft Office, you have LibreOffice, which is a very capable substitution for Microsoft Office, which again is free. You have things like the GIMP for anyone that uses Photoshop. You have LibreOffice Draw for people that use, I believe, Illustrator. Or no, I'm sorry. You have Inkscape for people that use Illustrator. So there's free versions to all of these programs that you normally use. And we're going to be looking at a couple of them. I'm going to show you where to go to find alternatives to the programs that you may already use. And then we'll go from there. So we're going to jump into Windows 10. And from there, we're going to see what we can find. So this is Windows 10. Now, this is the latest version of Windows 10. I will show you. For anyone that is on Windows 10, 19.3, I believe, is the latest version. So we are running the latest version of Windows. Now, this may look a bit different than yours if you're using Windows 10, because this has a different theme going. This has the light theme as opposed to the dark theme. But this is Windows 10, the current version. So basically this is a default install. I have installed Google Chrome, but pretty much this is what you will get when you install Windows 10. So to find alternative programs that you might use on Linux, let's go onto the internet. And there is an excellent website that I would recommend called Alternative 2. If you just type that in the search and hit enter, this is what you're looking for, alternative2.net. So if we go here, basically this site, you can type in any program that you want and it will show you alternatives to it. So if we type in, if I could type Microsoft Office and hit enter. So you see we have Microsoft Suite, which includes Word, Excel, all of your basic Microsoft programs. You can search for just alternatives to Word, for just alternatives to Excel, etc. So if we go to, let's say, Microsoft Word, again, this tells you about the program. If you scroll down, you'll see all the alternatives to that program. This Google Docs is basically the online Google version, and this is really good if you want to keep synced everything that you type in there. You actually don't have to hard save. Google will keep track of that for you. The only problem is this is owned by Google, so it may or may not be public to Google. But this one here is the one that comes default installed with Linux. This is LibreOffice Writer. Now if we go back a second and actually search for this, the Microsoft Suite, which again includes all of the Microsoft programs, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. If we scroll down, you'll see LibreOffice. Now LibreOffice is again a free alternative to Microsoft Suite. It includes LibreOffice Writer, which is a substitute for Word. It includes Calc, which is a substitute for Excel, so on and so forth. So if we click on this, you'll see it tells you all about the programs. As you can see, it lists the programs here: Writer, Calc, Impress, Draw, and it tells you what they're substituting for. So again, Writer is a substitute for Office Word, Calc for Excel, Impress for PowerPoint, etc. You also get some screenshots over here that you can look at. Okay. Now if you're interested in installing this and trying it out, you just scroll down a bit and look for this link right here, the official website. So if we click that, and there you go. You'll see a big download now button. So we're going to download this, we're going to install it, and I will be right back once it's installed. Okay, so it has installed and it has auto-launched the installation wizard. So we're just going to walk through this quickly. We're going to hit next. We're just going to do a typical install. We will create a shortcut on the desktop, and I do not want to load it with the system startup. Alright, so again, we'll just let this install, and I'll be back once it's done. Alright, so it has finished installing, so we're going to hit finished. We're going to minimize this, and here we have LibreOffice 6.2. So let's click on this. And what you'll see when this opens is you'll see all the different programs associated with this overall program. Okay, so we have a Writer document, which again is the same as Word, an Excel sheet. This would be your PowerPoint presentation. And Draw, I'm not entirely sure what Draw is. I've not used it. And again, on the Alternative 2 site, it tells you what program this replaces, but I have just not used it. So if we go into our Writer document, then you'll see this is very similar to Word. You have all your options up here, as well as through here. You can do pretty much everything you can in Word. You can add charts, you can add pictures, you can add text box, all of this stuff. You can add symbols if you like. So that would be the point of this video. I would say to install something that you think would be a good alternative for programs that you already use, and see if you can get used to them to the point where you could pretty much give up the program that you're using. So let's try one more. Let's go back to alternative2.net and let's type Photoshop. Now, like I said, GIMP is usually a replacement for Adobe Photoshop in the open source world, so we'll click on Adobe Photoshop. Again, it shows you all about the program. And if we scroll down, here's the GIMP. So we'll click this. Alright, again, you can see screenshots, you can read about the program, but we're going to go to the official website. Alright, this is the latest version of it, 2.10.12, so we'll download that. And I'll give you a quick look at what that looks like. Okay, and here it's asking you what you want to download it for. You can download it for Linux, you can download it for Mac even, but we're going to download for Microsoft Windows because that's what we're running. Alright, so we're going to do directly. Alright, and again, I will be back as soon as it installs. Okay, so it has installed, so we'll go ahead and search for it. GIMP. Alright, here it is. Now, like I said, this is a free version of Photoshop. It's probably considered to be the go-to open source version for Photoshop. You can do pretty much everything in GIMP that you can do in Photoshop. It might take some extra steps, but this is free versus however much you would pay for Photoshop nowadays. I'm not sure what it's up to, but it's not cheap. So, similar to Photoshop, you have all your tools on the left. You have options down here based on what tool that you select. So if I select the brushes, you'll see all the settings for the brush tool. You have layers panel over here that you can add layers to. And up here you have things like textures, text, brushes, etc. And again, you can customize this however you want. You can move things around, you can add settings to places. It is very, very similar to Photoshop. So again, this is just a breakdown of how you can take programs that you already use on a daily basis and find alternatives to them. Linux is definitely does have a little bit of a learning curve, but nothing like most people think. So it's not going to be a complete shock if you ever do decide to try it. And in coming videos, I will actually show you how to install a live version of Linux that you can actually test out for yourself without actually affecting your system. And that involves basically putting Linux on a flash drive or on a CD, booting to it, and just testing it out, completely leaving your system as it is. So we'll get into that video a little bit later. I thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.